Introduction to ABA. Hi, my name is Avery Allen and I'm a BCBA LBA in Northern Virginia. I have been working in the field of ABA for about 6 years now and supervising for over 2 years. If you are interested in learning more about my consultation services, supervision services, or want to schedule a time to talk, please reach out via email. What is ABA? ABA is a science that focuses on improving and changing human behavior. It is based on the idea that behaviors occur in the context of an individual's environment and are controlled by specific events within that environment. ABA focuses on behaviors that can be explained by observable events rather than private events like thoughts or feelings. It uses events that occur within an individual's environment to determine the function of a behavior. ABCs and functions of behavior. In the ABCs of behavior, the A stands for the antecedent, which is what happens immediately before the target behavior. The B stands for behavior, which is what is happening. And C stands for consequence, which is what happens immediately after the behavior. The ABCs of behavior are used to determine the function of the behavior. A single behavior can have multiple functions. Here's an example of ABC data recording. Sally is playing on her iPad. The antecedent is that Mom asks Sally to put her iPad away. The behavior is that Sally screams, cries, throws the iPad, and hits Mom. And the consequence is that Mom ignored Sally, picked up the iPad, and continued cooking. Here is an example of ABC data recording. Sally is playing on her iPad. The antecedent is that Mom asks Sally to put her iPad away. The behavior is that Sally screams, cries, and throws the iPad, and hits Mom. The consequence is that Mom ignored Sally, picked up the iPad, and continued cooking. Here is a video example of a tantrum. In the previous video, what was the antecedent? Being told it was time for bed. Although the child was upset when she was denied access to a movie, the true antecedent is being told it was time for bed. The child tries to negotiate a movie rather than get ready for bed. There are 4 functions of behavior: attention, tangible, escape, and automatic or sensory. Attention is when behavior is used to gain attention, whether it be positive or negative, from another person. Examples include praise, eye contact, verbal reprimands, and hugs. Tangible is when behavior is used to gain access to a tangible item. Examples include their favorite snack, their favorite toy, or their iPad. Escape is when behavior is used to escape, postpone, or avoid less preferred events. Examples include eloping, acting out, or swiping materials. Automatic or sensory means that behavior is maintained by internal outcome rather than another person's action or reaction. Examples include flapping, rocking, and repetitive sounds. Why do we need to know the function? Identifying a behavior's function allows for a proper intervention to be determined, and we know why it is happening. All behaviors serve a purpose. As long as a behavior continues to be reinforced, it will continue to occur. Example: every time she is hungry, Debbie begins to scream. When her mom hears the screaming, she immediately responds by talking to Debbie, asking her what she wants, and provides her with a snack. What is the function of Debbie's behavior? What is she trying to obtain? Debbie's screaming behavior is maintained by obtaining a tangible and most likely attention. We need to identify an intervention to target screaming for those functions. If she was screaming to escape cleaning her room, we would need a different intervention. Planning time to spend actively playing with your child can assist with attention-seeking behaviors. Commonly used ABA intervention. Reinforcement. Reinforcement involves changes made to the environment. Something can be added or something can be removed. It increases the frequency of the targeted behavior in the future. There are two types. Positive reinforcement occurs when a behavior is followed immediately by something that increases the future frequency of the behavior. Something is added. Negative reinforcement occurs when a behavior is immediately followed by the removal of something that increases future frequency of the behavior. Something is taken away. Examples of positive reinforcement include favorite snacks, favorite activities, and social interaction. Examples of negative reinforcement include lowering the intensity of something and taking a break. Tips for using reinforcement effectively include use it immediately, make sure it's contingent on a specific behavior, make sure the level of reinforcement matches the level of work, and offer a variety. Extinction. Extinction is the process of removing reinforcement from a behavior that has been previously reinforced. For example, removing attention when a child cries to obtain attention when previously you have responded to it. Extinction burst. An extinction burst is an increase in frequency and intensity of undesired behavior when extinction is initially implemented. It occurs because the behavior has previously worked to obtain reinforcement. Child tries harder to obtain the reinforcer. Here's a video example of an extinction burst. Spontaneous recovery. Spontaneous recovery is when a behavior suddenly begins to occur after previously being put on extinction. If the response remains consistent, the behavior will decrease again. Let's review. Does positive reinforcement increase or decrease the future frequency of a targeted behavior? It increases future frequency. Reinforcement always increases future frequency. Differential reinforcement. It is used to increase a desired behavior and decrease an undesirable behavior at the same time. We reinforce only the appropriate response or behavior that we wish to increase and apply extinction to all other responses. There are three main types of differential reinforcement. Differential reinforcement of alternate behaviors involves reinforcement being provided when another, more appropriate behavior is engaged in or observed. For example, when Katie asks for a snack using her words, she is provided for a snack. She is not provided a snack when she cries or uses any other behavior to obtain one. Differential reinforcement of incompatible behaviors means that reinforcement is provided when another, more appropriate behavior is engaged in or observed that is incompatible with the inappropriate behavior. For example, praising a child for walking appropriately in the hallway and not for running. Differential reinforcement of other behavior means that reinforcement is provided as long as the inappropriate behavior does not occur. For example, if Sarah engages in aggression, especially when she's playing with other kids, she would be praised anytime she's engaging with another person and not engaging in aggression. Punishment. Punishment occurs when a stimulus change immediately follows a response and it decreases the future frequency of the difficult behavior. There are two types, positive and negative. Positive punishment occurs when a behavior is immediately followed by the presentation of a stimulus that decreases future frequency. Something is added. And there are two types. Response blocking, that involves physically intervening to block behavior from occurring, and overcorrection, which is requiring the child to engage in an effortful behavior related to the problem behavior. Negative punishment. It occurs when a behavior is immediately followed by the removal of a stimulus that decreases future frequency. Something is taken away. There are two types. Timeout. Remove the individual from the activity or item and do not provide attention. Or response cost, which involves the loss of a specific amount of reinforcer when the problem behavior occurs. It is recommended that a timeout last 1 minute per child's age. In timeout when time has passed and child is quiet. Consequence and antecedent interventions. A consequence intervention involves a decrease or increase of future occurrences of target behaviors by changing events after the target behavior occurs. An antecedent intervention involves decreasing or increasing future occurrences of target behaviors by changing events before the target behavior occurs. Antecedent interventions modify the environment, change the difficulty of the task, offer choices, or have pre-planned breaks. Consequence interventions include reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. Prompting. An added stimulus that increases the probability that a correct response will be made. There are 6 types: physical, verbal, model, gestural, visual, and positional. Prompting hierarchy. The most intrusive and intensive prompt is a physical prompt. In the middle, we have gestural, positional, visual, and modeling, and the least intrusive prompt is a verbal prompt. Considerations when using prompting. Make sure that you prompt immediately. Do not allow an error to occur. Start with more intrusive prompts and fade gradually. Provide high levels of reinforcement when a response is unprompted and completed independently. When correcting an error, use the least intrusive prompt possible. Let's review. What is an example of a positive punishment? Overcorrection. Behavior training. Behavior training is when a sequence of responses in which each response serves as a cue for the next response. It is used to teach adaptive living skills such as washing hands, brushing teeth, or getting dressed. Task analysis is used to break down each task and teach steps within the chain independently. 3 main types of behavior training: backward chaining, forward chaining, and total task chaining. Teaching methods. Natural environment teaching. This is a naturalistic approach to teaching. It's helpful when teaching play and social skills and useful when generalizing skills. The basic approach to naturalistic teaching includes using the natural environment, setting up situations to capture motivation, waiting for the child to initiate, and providing prompt if needed and reinforcing. Discrete child training. This breaks down learning opportunities into well-controlled, discrete teacher-student interactions. It's typically used at the table or when the child is sitting. When you're using discrete child training, you mix 80% of mastered skills with 20% new skills. Discrete child training procedure. First, you start with the instruction, then the child responds correctly, and then reinforcement is provided. Let's review. Where does discrete child training usually take place? At the table or in a seated position. Verbal operant. Pointing is a way to communicate without needing verbal communication skills. 4 types of verbal operant. Amand, which is a request. Tact is labeling or identifying an item. Echoics is repeating the verbal behavior of another person. And interverbal is responding to the verbal behavior of others, often fill-ins or answering questions. Data collection. Measuring behavior. When measuring behavior, we need to make sure we have operant definitions. An operant definition is a clear and concise definition of how to measure target behavior. We typically measure target behaviors with frequency, intensity, and duration. We need to establish a baseline and then introduce intervention or treatment. Data collection. It's used to objectively determine whether or not a behavior occurred and if there has been a change in behavior over time. There are many different ways to record behavior. We need to compare the intervention data with the baseline data. Data is typically recorded when skills are done independently, plus, or there is an error or they required prompting, minus. This is an example of sample data. The target behavior here is answering questions with one word. A plus indicates that the child answered independently, and a minus equals that they required prompting to answer. Data is typically presented in graphs. It makes the data easier to show and read, as well as identify visual progress or lack of progress. The x-axis is the unit of time, and the y-axis is the behavior that was recorded. Here is an example of graphing. If you have any questions, you can reach me at my email listed below. You can also reach MDA Africa at their email listed below. Thank you.